Have you ever wondered if a person can hurt you? Have you ever been surprised by the actions of someone you thought you knew well? Perhaps you have heard of stories where seemingly harmless individuals turned out to be a source of pain and suffering to those around them. But how can we protect ourselves from these hidden threats? Is there a way to identify people who might be dangerous to us? If you are asking yourself these questions, stay until the end because you are in the right place. In fact, the Zen story that follows offers valuable lessons on how to identify the signs that can reveal a person's danger to our lives. So, prepare to be guided through a journey of wisdom and awareness where you will discover how to protect your heart and your life from harmful individuals. But before continuing, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to be updated when we publish new spiritual growth content. In a remote Buddhist monastery, nestled among the majestic Japanese mountain peaks, the twilight danced on the walls of the ancient Buddhist temple. The elderly monk Ki was preparing to share with his disciples a valuable lesson on how to recognize people who can ruin our lives. Kay scanned the faces of his disciples. He knew that the theme of this lesson was vital to their spiritual and personal development, and that many of them had already suffered many disappointments from relationships with others. Today, Kay began, his voice calm but vibrant with energy. We will explore the signs that can reveal a person's danger to our lives. These signals are like whispers of the wind, indications that guide us through the paths of life. One of the most obvious signs that we are faced with a person who represents a risk to our emotional balance is the lack of empathy, Ki continued. Dangerous people often show an absence of compassion for other living beings. They may ignore the suffering of others or even rejoice in their pain. This behavior is like a cold winter night, freezing hearts and darkening light of kindness. To better illustrate this concept, Ki told the story of a young village woman who, seeing an injured bird that had fallen from its nest, casually trampled it underfoot without feeling any remorse. His eyes were as empty as bottomless pits, devoid of any trace of pity or compassion. From that day, the other inhabitants of the village understood what the real nature of that woman was, and they kept a safe distance from her. A young disciple raised his hand. But how can we identify this lack of empathy, Master? Sometimes people are good at hiding their true nature. Kay smiled, recognizing the ardor of a search for truth in his students. Watch the way they talk about others. Dangerous people can denigrate, criticize, or humiliate others without any remorse. Remember that the way they treat those who are not present or who cannot be of service to them reveals the true nature of their heart and soul. Another disciple joining the discussion asked, "What if someone shows a constant desire for control?" Ki nodded, acknowledging the validity of the question. The desire for control is like a chain that imprisons both the one who seeks to control and those who are under his dominion. Dangerous people may try to manipulate others, to influence their decisions and actions to serve their own ends. This behavior is like a raging river that flows relentlessly, overwhelming everything in its path. To better illustrate this concept, Kay told the story of a local tyrant who, with his wealth and power, forced the villagers to obey him blindly. This man used fear and intimidation to maintain control over everyone, depriving them of their freedom and autonomy. A heavy silence spread among the disciples as they reflected on Ki's words. Then another voice rose among them. What if someone treats us with excessive, almost suspicious, and obsessive affection? Ki nodded, acknowledging the complexity of the topic. Excessive affection can hide an uncomfortable and complex truth. Dangerous people can sometimes try to get too close, invade our personal spaces, and limit our freedom. This behavior is reminiscent of the nature of poisonous flowers, which attract their victims with their beauty but lead to ruin. To make this aspect better understood, Kay told the story of a village woman who, with her sweetness and apparently sincere affection, attracted a young disciple into her network. But beneath the surface of his apparent love, there were dark and manipulative motivations that ultimately led to the young man's suffering. Another disciple raised his hand and with a contrite expression asked, "What if someone is restless and impulsive, unable to maintain emotional balance?" Key nodded and replied, "Restlessness and impulsiveness can be indications of a tormented soul. Dangerous people can be unable to control their emotions, sparking conflict and instability around them. This behavior is like a storm that suddenly hits us, disrupting everything in its path." Kay told the story of a young village warrior tormented by his inner demons who one day, driven by his restlessness, started a violent quarrel with another villager, leading to destruction and pain. Another disciple, his eyes full of doubt, asked, "What if someone shows signs of dishonesty and lack of integrity?" Kay sighed, knowing how damaging this sign could be to a community. Dishonesty and lack of integrity are like a poison that corrupts the fabric of a society. Dangerous people can lie, betray, and deceive without any remorse, sowing discord and disharmony wherever they go. This behavior is like a rotten root that corrodes the soil on which our trust and security rests. To better illustrate this concept, Kay told the story of a village merchant who, with his lies and deceptions, had caused the financial ruin of many honest families, leading to chaos and desperation. While the disciples listened with extreme attention, Kay closed his eyes for a moment, gathering his thoughts to address another important signal that should not be underestimated. What if someone shows signs of emotional instability, changing moods unpredictably, and displaying conflicting behaviors? He asked rhetorically to the disciples present. Emotional instability can make a person's actions unpredictable, creating an environment of uncertainty and confusion around them, he said. Dangerous people can oscillate between moments of apparent kindness and uncontrolled anger, leaving those around them on an emotional roller coaster. This behavior is like a tumultuous tide that can drag everything in its path. To better understand what he was talking about, Key told the story of a village craftsman known for his tantrums and mood swings, who one day, blinded by his anger, destroyed his most precious work, leading to despair his family. As we explore these signals, Key continued, remember that true strength lies in awareness. Cultivate the ability to recognize these signals and trust your intuition. Only in this way will you be able to protect your heart and your life from those who can harm you. In life, we often encounter individuals whose true nature is hidden behind a veil of appearances, and because of this, we are unable to protect ourselves from them. But through the valuable lessons of wisdom you have learned today, you can learn to recognize the signs that warn us of impending danger. Always remember that if we learn to listen to ourselves, our ability to discern and trust our intuition protect us from those who could harm us. And always remember that despite the challenges we may encounter along the way, the light of truth and awareness always shines in the darkness. You just need to know how to look for it. May this light be a guiding light in the darkest nights and a force that supports us in the trials of life. Therefore, armed with knowledge and compassion, we can continue our journey with courage and hope in our hearts, knowing that we are the guardians of our destinies and our relationships. May every encounter, even if it brings with it risk, offer us the opportunity to grow, learn, and love with greater depth.